right. All right. Greetings, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the virtual book launch of The Road to Esquire, Black Women, Motherhood, and the Law. My name is Rita Pierre. I am the visionary author behind the series The Road to Esquire, and I'm delighted to also be serving as your moderator for this evening's discussion. So, this book, specifically this book, was created to uplift and amplify the voices of Black women attorneys, those who are specifically mothers. Oftentimes, the voices are overlooked, and in our legal professions, they are silenced. And so, tonight, what you'll hear are real stories of resiliency, advocacy, and legacy. And so, to set the tone of this evening, I'd like to begin by reading the Declaration, which is the opening poem of the book, written by myself, and it embodies the spirit of truth-telling, sisterhood, and unapologetic honesty, which basically grounds this anthology. So the poem is entitled Becoming, a declaration for Black mothers in the law. They told us we had to choose career or crib, boardroom or bedtime, briefs or bottles. We tried to do it all. We tried to be it all. And somewhere between the courtroom and the car seat, we started to wonder, am I enough? Enough at work where our silence was mistaken for weakness. Enough at home where our absence felt like guilt. We smiled through the judgment, hid exhaustion behind lashes and lipstick, buried burnout under winds, and let strong become a mask we wore too tightly. But no more. We are unlearning the lie that our worth is measured by our sacrifice. We are dismantling the myth that rest is a luxury we cannot afford. We are rewriting what it means to be excellent, to be present, and to be whole. We are the first, the onlys, and the forever trying. We are the ones who prayed between hearings, who pumped between motions, who cried in the bathroom, and then walked out back into the meeting with our heads held high. We are giving ourselves the grace that we so give freely to everyone else. We are letting go of the need to be perfect and embracing the power in simply being soft, being sure, being still, being enough. This is our oath. We are not too ambitious for motherhood, nor too maternal for ambition. We are not fragments, we are full. We are not imposters, we are proof. We are not falling behind, we are becoming. Becoming whole, becoming seen, becoming free, becoming ourselves. So now that we have set the stage, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Tonight's event is going to run between 45 minutes to an hour, allowing time for panel discussion as well as questions from the audience. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. They will be monitored and your questions will be compiled toward the end. Also, if you want to just give any words of encouragement, if you want to co-sign anything, the chat message is there for that. So please, drop your questions, drop your comments in the chat as we go. So I want to also say thank you to all of the contributors, my co-authors that essentially made this project what it was. The Road to Esquire anthology series would not be what it is without my fellow co-authors. Now, tonight we are featuring three of our co-authors for the Black Women, Motherhood, and the Law series. However, our other co-authors, some of them will be here with us in spirit. As you see, the title is Black Women, Motherhood, and the Law, and we are in the thick of back to school season. So unfortunately, some of our co-authors had other obligations, and so they're not able to make it tonight. But again, they are here in spirit. And if you do see them in the chat group, please show them some love, give them a shout out. Lastly, I'd like to take the time to extend a special thank you to Professor Leah Hill of Fordham University School of Law, my alma mater, who wrote the foreword to this book. Professor Hill was my family law professor, and she also served as the BOLSA faculty advisor during my time as president of the Black Law Student Association at Fordham. She's somebody that I deeply admire, not only for her brilliant legal mind, but also as a mother and a fierce advocate whose work continues to inspire myself and others. Professor Hill, thank you so much for your powerful contribution and for your ongoing commitment to this work. So, at this time, without further ado, I would love to introduce our panelists for this evening. The first is Marley Marcellus Laurent. She is a senior counsel at a prominent tech company, and she is the author of the chapter No Perfect Balance. Next, we have Yeve Chitiga, an attorney turned executive coach and the author of the chapter Motherhood the Road to Self-Advocacy. Last but not least, we have Tamika Stembridge, an attorney, consultant, a founder, and the author of the chapter This Wasn't the Plan, Embracing the Unexpected Turns in Law and Life. Together, Together, they bring years of legal experience, advocacy, but most importantly, lived experiences as mothers navigating the demands of this legal profession. Thank you, ladies, for being with me tonight and essentially just really being vulnerable. Like this book, and I know we've talked about this offline, has been such a cathartic experience for so many of us. But the vulnerability that you guys showed in sharing your chapter, your story, your life essentially with the world is one that I already know has impacted so many so far. And so I just want to thank you guys again personally for being on this journey with me and for really allowing yourselves to be vulnerable. And so I want to begin with a foundational grounding question, and I will throw this to all of you. What made you want to participate in this anthology and share your story with the world? And we can start with Yeve.
So, Rita, I knew you were going to choose me. First, I just want to say to you, you are the visionary behind this project. Thank you. Thank you for choosing to create such a powerful anthology, for calling on us to tell our stories and empowering us to do so. So just want to pause and say that. And to my fellow co-authors, it's so good to be here with you, Tamika and Marley. I'm so excited to dive in. The reason I chose to be a part of this awesome project is because why not? I think you posted it in a group that we're both in, and I saw it and I thought, oh my goodness, this is something that I would love to be a part of. And I want to be clear, I was scared. I was scared because, sharing this story is, like you said, it's a very vulnerable and raw kind of account of what I experienced. It's not something that I've done so publicly before, but I very much felt pulled to do so. And as you said as well, it was very cathartic. And so I'm so glad that I said yes. And anytime that I can share and inspire and encourage and help someone else, I want to do that. And that was very much this experience for me. So it was a no-brainer, even though I did it scared.
Thank you, Yeve. Tamika.
Hi, ladies. Hello, everyone. So this project, a friend actually forwarded it to me. So that was like the first nod, like, oh, you see me in these spaces, and you think enough of me to think I should share my story. But then ultimately, after sitting on it for a while, I was like, I need to do this for my sons. I need to capture what I've been through before they got here so that they can understand that I was a whole person before I became their mom, and that really that anything is possible. I think, my story when we get into it was so different than everyone else's. And my kids just think I solve problems all day. Their problems, my clients' problems. They're like, you're a strategist. This is what you do. But really just wanted to give them a good sense of history captured because we don't give our kids a resume. And so this is an opportunity for them to kind of see us through a different light. And so I did it for them.
I love it. I love it. And last but not least, Marley.
Well, hi. I'd say, first of all, I too want to congratulate you, Rita, for putting us together and putting out such a wonderful project. I have to say that having worked on a first book with you, at first I gave myself the excuse of being too busy to even participate. And Rita can co-sign to it. And I'm like, I'm too busy. But then, as I recall the conversations that I've had with some of my dearest friends, including Rita, about the experiences that I've had to navigate, the choices that I have had to make, I felt like that can't just be me. And there was something that I could put out there, share. It was hard to be very much vulnerable, to share things that I've never really shared publicly. So that, to Yeve's and Tamika's, like, I was afraid. I did not want to do this, but I felt compelled to do it because so often we suffer in isolation when collectively we are experiencing the same.
Thank you, Marley. And with everything that you all said, I mean, that's even myself, honestly, when thinking about putting this together, my fear was that, oh my gosh, is anybody going to, answer the call? Because again, like, vulnerability is such a thing that a lot of us, struggle with. I struggle with vulnerability. How much should you share? How much should you not share? And so even putting this project together, and there were a lot of people who initially signed up and then, dropped out because I think the reality of, like, wait a minute, yes, I want to share, but I'm not ready to share yet, hit many people. And so that's why I'm just so grateful that you guys answered the call, because especially now with everything that's going on, like, we need vulnerability more than ever. And we need people to share their stories. We need people, like Marley said, to kind of validate that this is not an isolated experience. We are all dealing with some level of craziness, whether it's at work, whether it's in our community. So again, like, it's just a true testament to the work that we're doing. Like, it's needed. Like, if we're feeling it, somebody else is feeling it, right? And so, Marley, I want to start with you. Your chapter was called No Perfect Balance. And I love that title because I think that this question of balance, and then to throw the word perfect in it, I think a lot of us are just stumped, and we're all on this quest, this journey to figure out, what does balance look like for us. And so you wrote in your chapter that balance is not a destination, it's an illusion. And so what does embracing the juggle look like for you today as a lawyer and a mom of three? And it's three young children. I always want to emphasize that. It's, you're not teenagers, these are young children. So talk about that.
Thanks so much for that question, Rita. I'd say that juggle for me start with the realization that it's not perfect. It's not a perfect balance. It's a realization that it's okay for me to not be perfect fully in both, in all of the roles that I occupied. But I think broadly speaking is that I always think about social media. And when I was thinking about the juggle and the balance, I'll post certain pictures, family pictures on social media, and I'll have fellow mom reach out to me. It's like, how do you do it? You look like you always have your kids all together during these activities and everything, and you also look like you're thriving at work. And I always want to dispel that idea that no, I don't have it all together. It's every day I wake up, I make a lot of day-to-day decisions. What can I take care of now? What can I put for later? And by later, it means like late nights.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I'd say the perfect juggle, if a lot of us are lucky, and I'd say I'm extremely blessed, having a really good partner, having a community. I have a great partner, but I don't really have a community where I am. So it's leaning on the partner that I have. It's also recognizing that it's okay to want to have help. So that's how I am embracing the juggle, knowing that it's not perfect, but I am leaning and accepting that if I need help, I ask for help.
Thank you, Marley. And I see that, both Yeva and Tamika, you're nodding your heads. And I know I'm going out of order a little bit here, but I want to touch on this aspect of having the right partner and how that helps in terms of, addressing this concept of the perfect balance. So either Tamika or Yeva, if you want to kind of chime in on that and talk about the importance of having, a strong community, or in Marley's case, she doesn't have the community, but she has an amazing partner that's there to help with this balance.
I'll start. I'll say this. I would never, and I'm the product of for the most part, a single mom. I could not do this without help from my partner, from my sister who's here, from every mom group that I'm a part of. Like, this is not something that you go out alone. And then when you layer on the lawyer part of it, you layer on, the things that we're doing career wise and how we're trying to rear our children, there's no way. There's no way. And it is one of the only reasons why I think any of us can say, one, we even got the chapters done, but also just on a day-to-day basis, how you're navigating between roles and switching between meetings and mom group and soccer practice and PTA and all those things. Like, I think I can't stress enough how valuable the partnership is. And also from fellow moms, because as much as partnership matters, only moms truly understand the burden that is motherhood
Mm-hmm.
in full. And so it's not just the day-to-day things, it's being able to let that burden down to another sister mom who understands exactly what you're going through, whether it's emotional, psychological, physical. You're like, girl, I'm just tired. And then
Mm-hmm.
she's like, get up, go take a shower, go get in the bed, because if you sit any longer, you're going to lose an hour. It's all those little moments that matter. And so I definitely think partnership and community and really undergirding ourselves in relationship generally is really important in balancing all the different things.
Thank you.
I mean, I would echo what Marley and Tamika said, right? For me, I also am very thankful to have such a great partner who really lets me do what I need to do when I need to do it. And sometimes that means it takes me away from, home, et cetera. And he's there playing his part and fully embracing his role. So I definitely am thankful for that. And then also community. And I think for me, one of the biggest aspects of community, especially since becoming a mom, has been not being afraid to ask for help, right? Mm-hmm. And say, I'm struggling, I need help with this, et cetera, because even if it's not social media, even just in life, people seem to have this idea that, you've got it all together, your kid is fine, you look fine, so everything must be perfect. And it's like, no, behind the scenes, and so letting people in on some of that behind the scenes, people who are close to me, and letting them know, I actually didn't sleep last night because my kid was sick. Mm-hmm. And so I'm showing up today, at 20% or whatever that is. And so really being vulnerable, again, this thread of being vulnerable. And lastly, I would say giving up the idea that balance even exists. Like Marley said, right? Like, it's an illusion. And so when I finally realized that there is no such thing as balance, and I am working toward work-life harmony, work-life integration. Those are concepts that are more meaningful to me, because balance is just, it's something that maybe exists in the movies, but it's not real as a mom.
Okay. And so, Marley, I'm going to throw this one back to you because it's kind of within the same vein. You shared deeply about isolation in the workplace in your chapter, right? And the fear of being seen as less committed after pregnancy and loss. Now, how can workplaces better support working mothers so they don't have to hide or grieve in silence? I really do want you to kind of get into a little bit, although we want people to get the book, but want you to kind of get into your chapter bit, because I think that when we think about isolation, especially in like the workplace, a lot of us are feeling that, especially as Black women, we are feeling isolated in these spaces. And then when we're talking about pregnancy, that's a different layer on top of that we have to tackle. And I know that you had a very specific situation that occurred where I think the isolation met the grief, met the loss. And I think it's so powerful that you shared that with us. And I would like for you to maybe expand a little bit as to, how you navigated that and like what that looks like for you.
Of course. So I will start by noting that when it comes to dealing with difficult situation, particularly as mothers, Black immigrant, I think there's two layers. There's the self-imposed, because like you're dealing with stereotypical issues, so it's self-imposed. And then there's also structural systemic issues. I think no matter what environment that you're navigating, you're constantly having these two in your mind when you are thinking about disclosing certain difficult situation, or like how do you share that with folks. So I think like I will share one specific scenario as you were alluding to, but given that I am in the space, I want to make sure that I am just giving like trigger warning. Because to the extent that anyone have ever suffered a specific loss, I want to be mindful to that. One of the experiences that I shared, and I want to keep it broadly, I didn't really speak to a specific employer, is a time where I had just started a new job and I became pregnant, and I ultimately suffered a miscarriage. And navigating being new, you're trying to show that you're eager to learn and contribute. That's just day one. You want folks to know that you're here to add value, and you certainly don't want to ask for a day off, even if most companies have policies in place, resources in place to avail yourself to if you are in need of them. But I think for me, it was a self-imposed first, because how do I now share this? I'm still brand new. I want folks to get to know me, to see my eagerness. So that was one of the main reasons why I chose not to disclose. But I also know too, we are constantly making these calculations. Constantly. Even if maybe if we had disclosed, of course, they would have made sure that you have the resources. But because we know and there's so many systemic issues at the workplace, sometimes we hold ourselves back. We decide to just, you know what? It's better to suffer in silence, because at the end of the day, we are getting paid to come to work, perform, and not necessarily share these personal struggles. Or if you are going to share them, you kind of want to share them and say, yes, this is what happened to me, but I am okay. That quick recovery. So I think at the end of the day, I made that calculated decision to simply suffer in silence, in the comfort of my own home, with my family, and the ears and comfort of good friends, without ever disclosing it at work.
Now, Marley, it's something that we've talked about like offline, just this idea that we have to suffer in silence, and it's just not fair that we have to do that when we see our counterparts sharing everything and getting perks and all sorts of things. Is there a way that employers, or is there something employers can do to essentially, I guess, assuage that from us, right? Since we are we self-calculate, we self-impose, like this is something that we're doing. But is there anything that employers can do, particularly for working moms, to support us in a way that can allow us to grieve, can allow us to to feel when we are going through these challenges?
Is that a follow-up for me?
Yes, or
Yeah.
and anybody who may have any ideas, with that, because I think that, you know, a lot of people like talk about these issues more openly now, thanks to social media, right? We're hearing more about these issues, but I still feel like the conversation is still like, well, this is what I'm going through. I'm suffering in silence, and I don't see enough of, well, here's what can be done for employers to, create safety, to create an environment where employees do not have to feel like they have to suffer in silence, and that they could take a day off if they experience a loss such as one that you experienced. So, any ideas?
Yeah, I'd say, one thing I'd say, like, for a bit, I've been in good places with some of my employers. Um, and one of the things that I'm seeing in the places, particularly present, there is a level of intentionality of, like, a lot of folks know, like, we can't capture everything, but how do we continue to make sure that we are leaving the door open for folks, creating, making sure that they have proper channels, making sure that they have, maybe if it's not even direct channels, maybe they have like third party channels that they can avail themselves. So I think of a continued awareness from employers that even if making available resources, there are moms for different lists of reasons will still hold themselves back because of fear of being perceived a certain way, or because of fear of loss of employment. They're likely not going to avail themselves. So I think like seeing the intentionality there is something that will continue. Like it's a continued work. It's not like you get it now and that's it. It's
Mhm.
a evolving work, and I've seen it at places where I feel like, okay, this is a good place.
I was going to say, Yeve, you're an executive coach. I'm sure you have come across this issue.
Yeah. So I think, what Marley is talking about with intentionality speaks broadly to the culture at the workplace, right? And so it's one thing, one side of the coin is having structures in place and resources for direct and indirect places that, working moms, working parents can go to. But the other side of that is actually supporting employees. So what happens when a working mom actually takes the time off? Does she come back and get told that she's not dedicating enough time to work? Does she come back and she's not up for promotion because she took time off? Right? Does she come back and she's missed for opportunities because of this? And so it's not only having the resources, but it's actually having a structure in place that supports people availing themselves of those resources, right? And
Mhm.
having this understanding and awareness among all levels, but especially those in leadership and management positions, to understand what it is that people might be experiencing, and having just like various types of cultural sensitivity training, right? Even
Mhm.
if, you are a male who has a working mom as a direct report, what could that look like? And just allowing people to feel safe.
Mhm.
Ultimately, we're talking about psychological safety, right? And not feeling like you will be retaliated against or punished or etc. for expressing that you need time off for whatever the reason may be. And so that's my addition. And I also just want to say here, Marley, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, I know how difficult it is to even share that, and the fact that you did so in this book, the fact that you did so on this platform, kudos to you. And I really, I see you and I appreciate you for doing that, because I know that it's helpful for so many who navigate these things alone and feel like they're the only person going through it. They're the only person who's ever experienced it. So thank you so much.
So, Yeve, we're going to turn to you. So, you write about motherhood, right? And the road to self advocacy, and how motherhood taught you to advocate for yourself in new ways. So, what was the turning point where you realized that lesson most powerfully?
Whew, yeah. So definitely get the book and read the stories. But at a high level, my story talks about my experience while I was pregnant and about to deliver my child. And during that experience, I was under the care of a doctor who, because she was the expert, like I naturally just felt like I needed to, I defer to you. You're the expert. But there were a number of inflection points. I think one that stands out is when it was close to my due date, she insisted that I needed to come in and be induced for labor. And for those who are listening, that's essentially like they'll, put various chemicals so that you like start labor when it might not necessarily be time, but they'll do that. And what I found out later is this is like a common practice, and it actually makes it very convenient for them so that they know exactly when the birth is and all of that. But I also found out that there's a lot of consequences with inductions and a lot of things that happen. We don't need to necessarily get into them now, especially because I'm not a medical person, but I really did my research and found out actually that's not in my best interest. And part of the reason she was pushing this was because she said that my baby was measuring big and she didn't want it to be, a super, super big child, et cetera, because then complications for me. And I just knew in my gut, even though I was a first-time mom, I knew that I did not want to have an induction. And so I told my husband I did not want to go that route. I was very terrified of delivering naturally, but I just knew that I did not want to do an induction. So I communicated that to her. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. Can we check back in a week and we can talk and revisit? Well, within the week, when I was supposed to go back to her, that's when my labor kicked in and I started, and my child was delivered just a week before her due date. And she was 6 pounds. She had been measuring like 9 or something like that. And I asked the doctor and I said, hey, listen, she's 6 pounds. Like, what were you talking about? And she was I remember looking and being like, she is so tiny. What was this idea of this huge baby that was going to, complicate things, et cetera? And I remember asking her, and her flippant response was, oh, these things can be off sometimes. And I thought, wait, so we were going to go off of something that's not even accurate, and you were going to do this whole procedure and do this whole thing, right? And you pushed it like it was something that I needed to do. And I would have deferred to you because you're the doctor, right? And so that was really a poignant like moment for me to be like, actually, no, I need to self-advocate and speak up for my child, speak up for myself. And there were countless moments with this provider where I had to make these decisions and say, actually, what about this? What about that? Right. But that was certainly one that stands out.
Yeah. The topic of childbirth, it's so traumatic at times, I think, especially for Black women. And as you're sharing your story, I'm thinking about my birthing story and how, unfortunately, I, was a little younger and I did not have, I guess, the self-advocacy tools. And so I remember, like you used the word defer. I felt like I just deferred to everything that they said, like, oh, you want to do emergency this? You want to do that? Sure, no problem. And it's ironic because a lot of us, not a lot of us, everybody who's here at least, we're all attorneys, right? Advocacy is essentially part of our DNA. And it's so interesting how we can easily jump in and be, zealous advocates for others. But when it comes to ourselves, there's usually a question or a delay or a hesitancy. But I love how you talked about advocacy in your chapter, Yeve, because I think that a lot of people, they struggle with that. They don't understand like how they're not advocating. Maybe we think that we're advocating for ourselves, but we're really not. But I think you sharing your story and how, you followed your intuition, you stood your ground, you knew something was wrong, even though you couldn't put your finger on it, and you advocated for yourself. And, again, not giving the whole chapter away. We want everybody to read it, but in your advocacy, like we saw, the outcome that you desired, was achieved. And so I think it's so important that we talk more about advocacy and what that looks like. Because it's something that a lot of us, I think, struggle with.
Yeah.
So I want to jump around a little bit And I want to get to you, Tamika, because Tamika, you have an interesting story. I was telling you that I was with a friend of mine last week who had the book, and they were like, "Who is this Tamika person? She seems so amazing." And so you have such an amazing story. And again, you got to get the book to get the
Yes,
full
you do.
flavor. But Tamika, I want you to talk a little bit about, your career path, because your career path took you from big law to entertainment to consulting and beyond, all while becoming a mother. And so with the career path, I kind of want to know, like, what did those pivots teach you about defining success on your own terms? Because a lot of us, we are either multi-talented, multi-hyphenate, but sometimes when we get into this legal profession, we feel like we're boxed in and we're
Yeah.
afraid. We don't even know what pivot looks like. So talk to us about your journey.
So short end, I mean, you gave it away. Corporate, nonprofit, law school, kind of out of nowhere. Okay, great. Go to law school, get good grades, go to a big firm because that's what you're supposed to do. I went because I needed to make a lot of money after making all the career transitions I made. But then ultimately was able to honor my own aspiration and desire of becoming an entertainment attorney. As you can see, I love music. I've loved music all my life. And so when the opportunity to go to law school came up, I was like, the only thing I could think to do was entertainment law. I do not want to go to court. I am a deal girl by nature. Like, give me some transactional documents and we can go. And so I was really clear on that when I went in. However, to your point, when you go into the legal profession, you go into law school, you are pretty much not necessarily pigeonholed, but you go down this path. And it's like you get these grades, you go here, this is, what your options are. But I was so clear going in that none of that looked like what I wanted. And so ultimately for me, it was like, am I going to be true to what my true aspirations and desires are? Or am I going to follow this path? And I think because I came into the law school experience kind of out of the box, for lack of a better
Mhm.
word, it gave me the courage to be able to just do the entire thing out of the box. And, interestingly enough, having gone to a big firm, the big firm experience felt so familiar to what I had left when I walked away from corporate America that literally in my gut, I knew I could not stay.
Mm.
And even with the experiences that I had, I performed well. So excellence was the standard all the way through going to law school. You don't get to a big firm without doing well. And so once I got there, though, having done well, the option to step away from it kind of left the door cracked a little bit. But I felt a little bit more comfortable going after my own path. Like, it was too much work to give in. Like, I feel like I did too much and I wasn't going to sacrifice what I ultimately wanted. And God just aligned it all. Like, I can't take any credit for any of this because Lord knows this is not what I originally signed up for. But I'm thankful for the journey. But it's difficult to step away from such a time honored career, time honored profession, and to do it the way that you want to do it. And so, for me, it's being that example for kind of the rule breaker in the legal profession, if you will.
So now, with all of that, I know that you are a mom of two, right? And so
Yes.
all these pivots, these changes, now essentially kind of being in the non-traditional path, like how has that impacted, if at all, like your
Mhm.
motherhood journey, right? Because some people may be watching this like, I would love to do what Tamika did, but I have these kids, or I don't want this to impact, my motherhood journey, so let me just stay and suffer at this firm or stay and suffer in this particular industry. So what would you say to people who are just like, how?
So two things. One, success and suffering. It's funny that they came up in like the same two sentences. If success for you is following the traditional path and having a secure seat at the table, walking the path, wherever it is, you could be at a corporation doing leave. You don't necessarily have to be in the firm experience. If that is success for you, do that. But if it is suffering, trust the suffering that you experience is not necessarily always received as sacrifice for your children.
Mm.
Because for me, like, being able to show up fully for my children is because I've shown up fully for myself in almost all aspects. Not perfect, but I've honored what I know I've truly desired. And so when I can, sit and kind of live through the experiences that I'm living through being an entrepreneur now, knowing the things that I've kind of walked away from or shed as I was walking through it, I'm comfortable and confident in what my journey has been. So if anything, I think my approach to this gives my children a little bit more freedom. Like, I want them to know that I'm an attorney, which is why my licenses are hung up. They will never see me in a courtroom, but they'll understand that mom went through the process. And if they have that question or have that aspiration, I can give them that insight. And so I would say for women that are considering, you don't always have to get off, but think about what success truly does look and feel like for yourself. Like, if success is suffering, I'm going to challenge you to question whether or not that's really success,
Mm-hmm.
because our children want to see us in our fullest selves. The money may be great, the check may be great, the consistency may be great, but if you come home burnt out, if you're not showing up joyful, if you're not showing up, with gratitude for the things that you've experienced and can share, ideally your professional life with your family and, in a way that feels true to you, then I just challenge you to question that. And do you need to make a pivot? Do you need to see EAVA and figure out what your career journey should look like? Because I think we owe it to ourselves as mom, as women, as Black women particularly, to experience the fullness of what we truly desire. And a career is such a huge part of that. And
Right.
we spend so much time there. I just don't want success to feel like suffering for us. It shouldn't.
Oof.
You said it. I didn't. You put them right next to each other. I was like, oh my God. Oh my
Listen, that's the subconscious
God.
working. So, Yevi, I would love for you to chime in because you are an executive coach that, works with women who are specifically, looking to transition. And this is a whole like transitional conversation here. So I would love like your insight as to this specific, theme.
Listen, Tamika, you nailed it. You nailed it. The way that I would frame the question for yourself, and Tamika set it up perfectly for me, is what would your future self thank you for? Right? Like, what are you doing today that your future self will thank you for? And if you come up and those answers are nothing, or you are not satisfied with that response that you get, then right, that you have to make some changes. And I think also, Rita, you alluded to it, when we are in this profession, we are so convinced that there is a linear one path. If I start out as an XYZ attorney, I have to die an XYZ attorney, or I have to die an attorney, period, right? And it's like, no, actually, you get this one beautiful life to explore and really live the life that you desire, including, as Tamika said, like your career, right? You get to choose. And I think it's so powerful when we remind ourselves that we get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Life is not happening at us. We get to choose. And choosing to not honor what you feel called to is also a choice. Choosing to remain in suffering is also a choice, right? And so recognizing that you ultimately actually have the power to change, to shape what you want your career and life to look like is so powerful. And it's also so liberating. And so that's what I would add. But Tamika, you covered it by everything that you teed up.
We need a masterclass from Tamika after this. We need a masterclass from you, Tamika.
I don't know. I don't know about that. The syllabus is blank. I'm just going to tell you that. There's a masterclass. The syllabus is blank. I don't know that I could teach that one.
Tamika, something you said, I apologize, Rita. I just want to touch on this because Tamika said something that was so powerful. It's worth noting, right? You said, I can show up fully for my children because I've shown up fully for myself.
Yeah.
You are essentially saying you put on your own oxygen mask. Now you can put on theirs, right? You can model that because you have done it for yourself. You've walked the walk. And what a beautiful example to set for your children.
Yeah.
They know it's possible because you've done it.
Yeah. And I will say this, though. I will clarify that point. I suck at putting my mask on first personally, but professionally, I have achieved that goal. And so, but that's a huge part of it. That's the point. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, Tamika, I don't know if you blinked out, but there you go. So, I wanted to do a follow up. Well, maybe not necessarily a follow up, but within the same vein. So you wrote that motherhood forced you to feel change for the first time. And I found that to be such a profound statement, especially since, I feel like as Black women, like we've experiencing life since we were born, right? We've had things thrown at us, we've had challenges, we've been exposed to so much. And so when I read that, I'm like, that is such a profound statement. I would love for you to be able to unpack what that meant for you and how it reshaped your career and your life priorities.
Yeah. So, like with all the change, and to your point, as Black women, we are constantly switching capes. You're moving from this role to that role. We're code switching. We're talking like this, then doing like that, putting our hair like this, then doing like that. So, we're honestly from birth have been trained to transition. When I became a mom in the midst of what I felt at the time was like the height of my career, it stopped me in my tracks. It was a guttural connection to the journey. Like, hold up, wait a minute. I'm working X number of hours a day, but now this kid wants 24 hours of my life. We were in COVID at the time. Like, I had my son right before COVID started. So we're in the house. I'm working full time, leading an organization. This baby is crying right next to me or trying to sit on my lap while I'm on conference calls. And the weight of everything, every choice that I've ever made was sitting right there on my lap, and I felt it. And it was the question, it was the guilt that we talk about. I'm not fully present for him. I'm in the same space. He should want me. I should want to be with him, but I have this thing I need to do. And
Mhm.
so all of those roles kind of converged in one place. And I had no choice but to feel. And then, add on postpartum emotion, which I think I had probably been just a corporate thug my whole life, but you put postpartum on top and everything cracks open. Um, so it was really difficult emotionally. I'm like, am I enough as a mom? Am I still showing up fully in work? Do I look crazy now because I'm leaning over to tell my 1 year old, not to pull the cord out the computer because I'm trying to get work done, as I'm on a conference call? And it was a real challenge. Like, I was forced to face myself and
Mhm.
really make a decision about what, again, is truly important, or how do I navigate this in a way so that I can show up fully in this space, give that a little bit of boundary so that when I leave this space, I can go and be fully present with my child. And so that was like the mirror held up like really, really close of like what's important to you. Like, this kid does not care about your conference call. This kid does not care. But I'm like, mommy needs to work because you need to eat. And so how does
Mhm.
this, how do these two things fit together? But it was the first time I really had to feel it, because otherwise, it's just natural for us to change, pivot, transition, move through, throw some pantyhose in the bag and switch up, in the car. Like, we know how to do those things. This motherhood put it right on your lap. And so, yeah, that was the thing for me.
Oof.
Yeah.
So one of the themes I think that was present in all of the chapters was resilience, right? And I think that we always hear Black people are resilient, Black women are resilient. Like, it's just the thing that we've grown up hearing. But it was evident in each of the chapters how resilient each of the authors were as they shared their story. And so I want to kind of get into, how each of you define resilience now after reflecting on your journey, right? I know for me, when I wrote, in the first book, and when I wrote my chapter in this second book, I was just like, whoa, I went through all this stuff. I forgot that I even dealt with half of these things. Like, because we're just so used to just pushing forward and going through, I had to really sit back and say, wow, like, I really accomplished a lot. I went through a lot. I overcame so much. Like, I actually am a strong, resilient person. And so I want to kind of get from each of you, now that you've wrote your chapters, you've been able to reflect on your journey, becoming Esquire, becoming a mother in the legal profession. How do you define resilience now? And anyone can take this first, but I want to hear from each and every one of you.
I mean, I'm happy to go first. I'd say I currently define resilience as not killing myself.
Mm,
And that's the bar. And I'll explain why I say not killing myself. When I reflect overall everything that I have accomplished, there was a time when someone tells me that I am resilient, I would take it as a badge of honor. And I never fully understood how much I've sacrificed to my detriment, how much I've given up to my family's detriment to get this honor of being called resilient. So now when I hear the words resilient, sometimes I almost have like a negative reaction to it because then I'm like, are you telling, like, is this you signaling to me that I'm doing too much?
mm,
And what does resilient mean to me if I am dead? And so I think back now, I need to learn how to stop. I need to reflect and ask, okay, am I overextending myself right now? What are the real trade-off? Is it my health? Then that's a opportunity for me to stop. Is it truly quality time with my family? Or is it really something that I am doing within the bounds of, okay, I can still do that. I am not overextending myself. I am not killing myself. I am not burning myself out. Because if we continue to wear this badge of resiliency, my fear is that we will continue to see women like us dying. I think of so many examples. I read an article, I think like maybe like last year, where a woman died for about 3 days in an office and no one knew she was dead. And I thought she was probably thinking that she was being resilient. We can still be great without trying to kill ourselves. So that's how I approach resiliency right now.
thank you, Marley. That was very deep. As you're saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh, let me go reevaluate my life because I'm doing too much. Because I like you, I saw it as a badge of honor, and I think our background, especially those of us who may come from certain backgrounds, like resiliency, strong Black woman, like if that's not what you are, then you're nothing. Like, this is your identity, and so you always have to show up even when you're tired, even if you don't want to. And so I thank you for putting it into that perspective, because it's true. Like, what is resiliency when you're dead? It means nothing. It means nothing at all. Tamika Yeve.
I'll jump in. Um, I think for me, when I think about being resilient, I can't talk about resiliency without talking about rest and my faith. And these are new learnings for me to lean on as I talk about resiliency, because as you talk about, right, it used to be a badge of honor to be the strong Black woman, right? And I also come from an immigrant background where it's like you work hard, you do all the things, and you're also carrying the weight of those who came before you, those who made sacrifices for you to be in the position that you're in. And so being a strong Black woman is like the ultimate. But I've learned to actually let that go. I don't want to be the strong Black woman. I want to be soft. I want to be I want to be rested. I also want to be taken care of, right? And so I have to rest in the midst of everything that I encounter, in the midst of everything that I do. And I like your point, Rita, about we often forget what we've experienced because we're on to the next thing and the next thing and the next challenge. And we forget the seasons that we've been through that have really pressed us, and shaped us and molded us. And those are truly difficult situations and things that we've experienced, because resiliency by definition is you have gone through some things. For you to be resilient, you have to have gone through some stuff, some hard things, right? And then for me, my faith, recognizing that if I am truly operating in faith, then it means that I cannot do everything, and I should not strive to do everything, because if I do, where's the room for God? Where does God get to have a say, right? If I'm the one who's constantly doing, then I'm not leaving that room. And so I've had to really activate and redefine my faith. And it allows me to operate from a position of rest and leaning into that rest and really redefining what rest looks like, right? It's not just taking a nap. It's actually shutting off for several weeks at a time, right? And truly resting, truly prioritizing sleep, truly prioritizing me and my needs, and shedding the people pleasing, right? The what will people think, all of that. And so for me, resiliency comes with all of those things, but firmly rooted in rest and my faith.
I love it.
That's really good. You just sent me to a place with the faith conversation. I would say for me, resilience is the question I ask myself as I'm walking the path is, can I come out in integrity? Can I come out whole? Can I come, like, will I go through this gauntlet and come out okay on the other side? Like, I want to be full. I don't want to be bruised. I don't want to be battered, beat up, torn down. Like, can I come out of this scenario whole? And that's, I mean, that's everything from, do I stay up an extra hour to do something for my kid? Or do I stay up an extra hour to read for myself? Or do I cancel an activity? Or do I cancel a meeting? Or do I decide that this is where I'm going to be for the night? Sorry, my phone is doing whatever it's going to do. But, it really is just trying to make sure that I honor the space that I've carved out for myself. And to your point, I do want to live a soft life, but I also know that we live lives full of responsibility that don't necessarily have to harden us. But how do I navigate all of the roles that I play? And can I show up in integrity in that space? So can I be a good mom when I'm momming? Can I be a good, can I be a good businesswoman when I'm on for business? Can I be a good partner when it's time for me to be a present partner for my person? And if I can't do that, then something has to give, because I want to honor myself, but I also want to honor the other people that are involved in having to experience me. And if I'm out of integrity, I know I don't show up the right way. My kids don't get the best of me when I'm like agitated from something else. My work doesn't get the best of me if I haven't rested. So it's can I be in integrity as I'm walking through this thing day to day, but life, as a whole. I don't want to be burnt out and bruised. Like, I don't want to show up at the end and they're like, girl, you got holes all in you, you tattered up, beat up, because I was so resilient, ducking and dodging things. It's like, I want to be able to walk through this with my head held high and like literally walk through whatever these things that we are going to go through on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I so agree with you there. I feel like, and Marley knows this, she's my former work wife from many moons ago. Um, I personally had, and I don't remember if I talked about it in any of my chapters, maybe the next book, but about, a nervous breakdown that I had from, I think, trying to, again, be everything to everyone. And it was very scary. It was a very, very scary time in my life. I didn't think I was going to overcome it, to be honest. I thought that that I was done. And when I look back at that experience now, it was the people pleasing, right? The having to be everywhere for everyone, even if, like, we joke about this all the time. I'm not, a housing lawyer. I'm not an IP lawyer, but you have family members and friends who are just like, hey, I have a legal issue. And instead of saying, "Oh, let me refer you to somebody," you're like, "Oh, I can go, do 3 hours, 4 hours of research and figure this out for you." Meanwhile, you have so many other things to do. So, I love what all of you have said, and even for me, going back after this live, I'm going to like sit back and really reevaluate, because I think that as much as we talk about wanting to shift and really reclaim our lives, the truth is that it's a struggle, because we're still trying to deprogram ourselves from like years and decades of the programming that we need to act a certain way. We need to be a certain way. We need to be everything for everyone. So again, I think that, just you guys talking about it now, talking about it in your chapters, it's the first step in trying to reprogram our minds when it comes to what it means to be resilient. So I love it. So we're going to do two more questions. And then if there's anybody in the chat that has a burning question or has something that they want to share, please do so in the chat box and we'll be able to address it at the end. And so the next question I want to ask all of you is, looking ahead, what does thriving, not just surviving, look like for you, right? Because we hear this term all the time. I'm surviving. And I remember one time somebody said, I don't want you to just survive. I want you to thrive. But then I had to think to myself, I don't even know what that means. What does it mean to thrive? And so I want to throw this question out to all of you. You know, what does thriving, not just surviving, look like? And does it look like something different to, you know, different people? Is there a general sense of what thriving is supposed to look like? And I want to start with you, Yeve.
I knew you were going to start with me. Got this thing going. I think you need to define it for yourself, similar to how you need to define success for yourself, right? So understand what are the values that are important to you. For me personally, thriving means I'm living in alignment. My work and life are in harmony. I'm healthy, and I'm able to operate and serve those who I need to serve, my family, my community, et cetera, from a place of abundance and overflow. That is what thriving really looks like to me. And I'm on a journey to that, right? And I understand also, and I give myself plenty of grace, knowing that it can go like this, right? Because life sometimes hands you things that you don't expect, and you need to deal accordingly. But that is my vision. That is what I want. And ultimately, I will be thriving when I can leave a legacy of exactly that for my children and their children and their children, so that they know that you don't have to suffer and to break, right? All the things that we were talking about. And you actually get to choose, and you get to live a life that is fulfilling and full. And so for me, it is a very holistic approach. But ultimately, it's living in alignment with my purpose.
I love it.
I'll go. For me, thriving is living out the fullness of my assignment in all the spaces, and doing it in a way that, again, allows me to show up fully, imperfectly, or perfectly as myself in every space. I got a tattoo a few years ago that says, free Black girl on my arm. And I got it on my forearm on purpose so that whenever I look down, whether I'm at my desk or in a meeting, I can be clear that this is the ultimate goal. And it's free Black girl, not free Black woman, because I think the little girl in me that had all the desires and had all the dreams, but, was able to shapeshift into all the spaces and be able to check all the boxes and do all the things, that little girl deserves to be happy when all is said and done. And that's in all the spaces. So the little girl that can show up for my children the way I would have wanted the little girl to experience childhood, that's important for me. And so thriving is just being able to fully honor my assignment and all the iterations of what it looks like and all the roles that exist. I'd like to be able to leave that legacy of freedom for myself, my children, the people that know me, to be like, she did it. Like when you show up to my funeral, just know that she did it, and she did it her way.
Love it.
Well, I guess I'm the last one. First of all, I have to say that I agree with my co-contributors. Everything you just said resonates with me. And I have to say that Yeve's answer to resilience is exactly how I envision how thriving for myself. But as a top line, I have to say that I have 3 children, 2 girls and 1 boy. My oldest one is exactly like myself. She's very hard on herself. She doesn't give herself grace, and she's almost 9 years old. I'm already picking that up. So I think about this question a lot. How do I show up? How do I, what does thriving and anything that I'm doing look like? Because she's emulating me. And I want to make sure that I am representing something that doesn't show her that it's okay for you to continue to put your to not give yourself grace, not appreciating the fact that like we need a level of softness.
Mm-hmm.
So softness and strength, I think, can coexist. And it took me a long time to really accept that softness and strength can coexist, because I always felt like I needed to be strong. And now that I have my kids, I want to make sure that I'm able to convey that to them. But then the other piece for me as well is that I need to continue to know that it's okay to be still in my faith. A lot of time there are things that we're navigating. I'm constantly reaching out, like responding to urgency. Everything that look like urgent oftentimes are not urgent. Sometimes all it takes is just clarifying deadlines. Other time it just like, do I really need to do this today? Because I find myself just like in an urgent mood. So how do I learn to stay still in my faith, stay still in the process, but also knowing, just like, to one of the points, I think Tamika or Eva, you were the one who made it. Like, we are all on this journey. I'm in a journey and I've gone through so many things, and I have been carried through my journey. That invisible hand has not left me. And every time I think about, oh my God, I'm going to fail. No, Marley, you're going to thrive, because that invisible hand has not left you. And that's the thing that I want to give my children, that no matter what they face, that invisible hand has not left them.
Mm-hmm.
Try to appreciate softness and strength as they go through life.
I love that. And as you know, I always say Marley, she always has the words that I don't have sometimes. But everything that you said, I think, really resonates with me, because we're all on a journey. But I feel like in this last like 2 years, especially, I've been on a quest. But I've been more intentional with making sure that my faith is nurtured while I'm on this quest. And so last Sunday I was in church, and the pastor was talking about gifts and how utilizing your gifts is what can lead you to understand what your purpose is, because a lot of times we're walking around, we don't know what our purpose is, we don't know what we're doing. And then a lot of us who are attorneys, we're like, well, this was the path. So, and we have all these natural gifts that we're throwing out there here and there, but we're not honing in on it because we're so fixated on what we said we were going to do or what society said that we need to do. And so for me, it's really been, being more in prayer and being, really tapping into my faith to be revealed, like, what are my gifts and how can I translate that to like my purpose so that I could thrive. I think a lot of us, and this is me talking for myself as well too, we get into these spaces and it's not like we're not good. It's just, this is not what our heart's desire is. It's not what our purpose is. And we're in these spaces and we're struggling because it's just not for us. It's not our purpose. And sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that that's the case. And it just creates all this. So for me, I think with the thriving piece of it, I want to be I think once I can settle into what my life purpose is and can actually work in that purpose and stand in that purpose, that's when I'll finally be thriving. And so, I think everything that you guys said, like all of it cohesively, like I think it's beautiful. And I feel like our audience is definitely loving the conversation as I'm looking at the comments here. So we're going to go ahead and jump into, there's 2 questions that came in, and they kind of are in line with what one of the last questions I was going to ask you all. So Andrea Ferguson Peterson asks, what advice would you give a mother of teens who decides to go to law school? So I can start with this. I was not a teenage mom, but I was a pretty young 20-something-year-old when I went to law school. My son was a year and a half, and I think I started law school when I was maybe 24, I believe. And the advice that I would give to a mother of teens who decides to go to law school is just, if that's what your heart's desire is, to do it, to not let the obstacles, I guess, prevent you from doing what you truly want to do. Because being a young mom a single mom going into law school with a toddler, it was very, very difficult for me. And many didn't think I was going to be able to do it. Even some of my family members were like, it's going to be difficult. I don't think, this is the time. I think you should wait. I don't think that maybe find another profession, maybe become a nurse, do something else. It's not going to be easy for you to become a lawyer having a young child. But I don't know if this is resilience, but definitely I definitely think it was my commitment to honor what I wanted to do. It was the commitment to saying that I always said I wanted to be a lawyer, not because society told me that I needed to be it, but because that's what I wanted to do. And this is what I always wanted to do. And I have faith that if this is also what God wants for me, that it's going to happen. So I think for me, I would say that anybody, whether you're the mother of teens, mother of a young child, single mother, whatever the situation circumstance is, if you want to do something, do it. Pray about it, do it. And if it's meant for you, you're going to succeed. I don't know if anyone else has anything else that you want to add to that.
I would echo that. And I'd also say, brace yourself, but also you're at a point in motherhood where you do have a little bit more freedom to pursue it. And think of how exciting it will be for your teens to say, oh, my mom is in law school. And not that you're doing it for them, but if it's something you desire, it's really cool to be able to see at that age, see your mom go after the things that she really desires. So I would say that, and then just schedule accordingly. Plan, because it's not easy. It is not an easy road. And I think people underestimate how challenging. And it's not necessarily that the work is hard. It is, but if you can think, you can do it. But the journey to the legal profession is an entire weeding out process. And no one part is directly connected to the next. And if you don't understand that infrastructure going in, you could get discouraged very early.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you're not the best test taker. So the LSAT takes you out. And so you never get to that next step. Or then you're not, I'm not a person that can work independently and read and do without homework and all that. So it's the process along the way. And if you just understand kind of what you're walking into, it's a little bit easier to navigate. So lean on people that have done it, listen when they tell you, and just understand that that's the process is designed to weed you out. Don't take yourself out the game if this is really what you want. Just figure out, this is the step I'm in. What am I supposed to focus on in this particular step? You can do it.
Oh, I was just gonna say the last thing I would add is lean on your community and set realistic expectations for yourself. You're not going to be able to show up in the same way for your kids or, various things that you're involved in. So lean on community and give yourself grace, knowing that you're pursuing something that's important to you and something that is difficult.
I'd say I'm aligned again with all of my my colleagues here. To a point that Tamika made about the process, I think the process of law school can be scary. So, to the extent that you're pursuing it and you get scared, if it is something that you truly want to do, I'd say do it scared, because there's so much behind when you explore things that you're scared of. I personally think a lot of things that I've accomplished have been things that I have initially been scared of. As part of my process, I evaluate how scared am I about this thing. If I am scared of it, I'll talk about it with my friends, but you rest assured, after praying about it and talking about it, I'll pursue it, because there must be something behind it for me. I don't know if this makes me like a risk taker too much, but I think there's a lot of things in life we have to do it scared, and you'll be surprised yourself.
So we have two more questions that came into the chat. One was, or is, would you do anything differently? I think that's an amazing question because I feel like it's hard, right? You've gotten to this point, and a lot of it is because of the choices and the road that you took. And if you didn't take or make these mistakes, you might not necessarily be where you are today. But thinking about what Tamika was saying with respect to understanding the landscape, I think for me, um, I would I would seek out I guess I would seek more people out who have, gone through this legal journey. When I first started, I didn't really know any other lawyers, to be honest. I just know when I was a kid, I watched Matlock. I wanted to go to, wanted to be a lawyer, and I did all these little internships. And I'm like, this is something I really want to do. I love helping people, but I didn't actually know attorneys who are willing to even give you any kind of game, right? Who are going to sit you down and explain to you, listen, like this is what actually happened in law school. You don't need to know what you want to do exactly when you get into law school, understanding what the dynamics are. So I think what I would do differently is to take time and seek out people who look like me, who have my background, who came, saw, and conquered.
I would say two things. One, I have nothing that I would change differently with respect to the decision or the choices that I made. I've come to understand that my life occurs in seasons, right? And for the season of life that I was in, being an attorney is what I needed to do. And now I've pivoted and now I work with attorneys as an executive coach, right? And so there's nothing I would change from that perspective. However, I would absolutely wish I could go back and help younger me to establish better boundaries. I did not have a good sense of even what boundaries were and what that looked like. I was operating mostly out of fear, people pleasing, all of these things. And so there was a lot of occasions in which instead of spending time with people that were closest to me, my loved ones, I was working. And there's a couple of notable instances where I'm like, wow, I really wish I could go back and could have done that differently, right? But I was a junior attorney. I was told we couldn't take time off, or the partner said XYZ to me, all of these different things, right? But had I had better boundaries also and an understanding, I might have navigated that situation differently. And so that's one thing that I encourage folks who are early in the career, who are in law school, whatever it is really understand what boundaries are, understand what your values are, understand where the lines are so that you can then communicate when you need to, because there will be times, plenty of times, right, when those boundaries are pushed to the very edge.
I'd say for me, I constantly think about my younger self. There's a lot of time where I felt I was so critical of my younger myself when I was young, in law school, in college, and the thing that would be constantly in my mind is questioning my worth. Am I good enough? When I was applying for college, I was questioning that. Am I good enough? Is this okay? When I got to law school, I was questioning myself, like, will I be a good advocate? Because I've been here since I was 12 years old. I still have an accent. And Rita knows this. I am constantly keenly aware of my accent. And there was a time I used that as an every excuse not to do certain things. But then over time, I go to different spaces and I see people with much stronger accent than I have. They are thriving. And I look back how many times I have literally stopped myself from pursuing certain things because I didn't think I was good enough. So if I could do one thing differently, I would stop that self negative talk sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And I would kind of go back to my initial point of truly relying on that invisible hand, my faith in God, that I have this carrier no matter what. I am going to go through it. So that's what I would go back. I would just give myself that push to stop the self doubt, the negative talk sooner, because sometimes, most often time, it can be a waste of time.
I can't remember, Tamika, did you? My brain is all over the
I was
place.
going to say, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I would say if there was anything I could do differently, it would have been, no, I can't. I mean, the sad part is, like, as wild as this ride has been, I know the nuances of it. And like I said earlier, God did it. Like, I could not have changed anything. I would have probably saved more money. I mean, that's probably the only thing. But I mean, outside of that, this journey has been like, if you read the chapter, just know at every pivot, it was God. Like, laying in my bed after I took the bar and I get a call from my old boss's hairdresser. Like, hey, can you come meet such and such? And then you get a job that day, your dream job that day. Like, that was God. I was at home chilling. Like, I'll just finish the bar exam. I'm good. I'm going to go to this firm, make a bunch of money, and hang out. And then plot twist. And so I'm thankful for the plot twist. I'm glad I was comfortable enough trusting my own journey to literally follow the breadcrumbs. Because to anyone else, this is absolute insanity. But for me, it just makes sense.
I love that. And something that you said, Marley, when you were just talking about, again, just like just I guess the experience of it all. I feel like many people will resonate with that, with this idea of the negative self-talk, talking yourself out of things, having questions of worth. I can't tell you, even for myself, even till this day, there are moments where it's like, am I still enough? Am I still enough? Am I doing too much? So I think it's a journey, right? Everything that we've talked about today, it's all about the journey. And I think that we are going to have these ideas, these negative moments where we are questioning ourselves and our worth. But I think at the end of the day, that's why the reflection is so important. Going back and seeing like where you've come, how you've overcome. I think that is an inspirational tool for ourselves. And I think that with this book, again, plugging it in again, it serves as such an inspirational tool I mean, it's inspirational for me to read everybody's chapter, but I think that anybody who reads this, whether you're in the law, whether you're in finance, medicine, whatever the field is, you will resonate with the stories, because I think the struggle is still real. Across the board when it comes to Black women in these spaces, especially when you add the motherhood aspect to it. So I'm being mindful of the time, and I see that some more questions have popped in. So we're going to do two more. So there's two more questions. We'll take two more, and then I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And so a question came in. What advice would you give to a woman in her 30s who is frequently asked when she is going to have children? I know that, again, when you're in the professional space, I think a lot of times when the elders see that, wait, you are an attorney or you are a doctor, you've achieved whatever the marker is. When are we going to, have these children? And I think that sometimes, a lot of us, we talked about balancing and making choices and seeing like what's best for where we are now. We have these questions we have to ask ourselves. Sometimes thinking about, I want to get promoted, is having a child right now going to be a hindrance to me getting promoted at my job? Or, I'm going to have to take maternity leave. Is that going to keep me from getting the good cases or from getting a better position or whatever the case is? So I do want to throw this out to anyone who wants to answer it, I guess. What advice would you give a woman in her 30s who's frequently being asked, when are they going to have children? And I'm thinking about it from the professional lens because, this is when we get these questions.
Can I give my honest response?
Yes. We want to see here.
First, mind your business, but no, not really. When God sees fit, when it is my time. Like, the reality is there's so many things that have to align for you to intentionally have a child. If you are a person that follows intention in your life, like my second was probably not as intentional as the first, but when you're having your first child, ideally you would want to have some attention behind it. And you can't do it by yourself. I mean, you can, I guess, medically do it by yourself, but the time will come. Like, we are in a place where I have friends that are in their mid to late 40s that are about to have children. Like, it does, like, technology has made that possible. I was 38 when I had my first child. And people were asking, both my sisters, my younger sisters had children, plenty of them. And I just had not done it yet. But when it was time, it happened. And, I wouldn't change anything that happened. Like, certain things you can control, but don't be discouraged. Don't think you've done anything wrong by not having children yet. It'll come. If that's something you desire, put it on the list like you do everything else and be intentional about it. But I don't think you owe anybody that level of response to your own life.
Not at this age.
No.
I feel like everyone's shaking their head. They're like, listen, girl, tell these people to I'll say it, mind their business, right? At the end of the day, we're the ones going through this, right? It's like you said, Tamika, like there has to be some intention behind it. And so, yeah. Pay no attention, Miral, to these people who are asking you these questions. There are bigger fish to fry. And so finally, I would like for each of you to kind of give just one last nugget when it comes to your chapters. What is one lesson you would love for people to take away or to remember from your chapters?
I'll jump in and I'll keep it short. For my chapter about self-advocacy in healthcare, I think the takeaway is you deserve quality and good, excellent care. You deserve that. And if you're not getting that, ask questions, speak up, seek alternatives. But you deserve that.
I would say, trust your journey. And I'm using your with a capital Y. This is your career. This is your life. And the reality is, whether you're a mother or not, whether you're an attorney or not, you only come this way once. And whatever the cards are that you've been dealt, whatever the cards are that you've picked up out of the deck, if that's what you want to do, go after it with your whole heart, with your whole being, because you owe it to yourself if it's something that you truly desire. So trust your journey, follow the breadcrumbs, trust God. He'll do it. He'll do it.
I'd say for my chapter, I would say that balance, the quicker you learn that balance is impossible, the better it is for you. And do not compare. You'll see lives on social media, you'll see things that are perfect. No one has a perfect life, no one has a perfect balance. We are all in this juggling journey together. You just happen not to, you're just juggling yours. But if you just step back and think about how other women are doing it, you'll learn that we are all just juggling it. And if you pick up the book, you'll at least learn from one more person who's just in the midst of juggle. So just balance is not perfect.
I love it. I love that title, Marley. I think for myself, when I think about what I want people to take away from in my chapter, is that since we're moving away from the word resilient, but that I think I've tackled my challenges with grace. I've learned over the years that I actually did a good job. Because I think in the beginning, I really struggled as a young mom, having to bring my kid to work, not being able to make all of his performances, telling him, listen, you're in the school nurse office, just drink water. I can't come pick you up. Like, I think I always focused on all of the negatives. And I didn't see myself as a good mom, to be honest. I was like, oh my gosh, like, he's not having the best experience because I'm out here chasing dreams. But I think as time has gone on and I see my son, who was a year and a half when I started, to now him being 18, I'm like, I didn't actually do that bad. I actually did pretty good. And the things that I thought were issues were not issues for him. The concerns that I had, and then I'm like, and I was able to take him on trips international, I made such a big deal about not doing, and I forgot about all the things that I did do. And so I think in my chapter, what I want people to realize is that, like, one, you're enough. Two, you did the best that you could, especially at the time that you did it and with what you had at your disposal, and that our kids are fine. Our kids, and they're going to be fine. And you're probably the best the best thing to them. Like my son, he has all these positive memories. He's never told me about the one time that I didn't do anything at this age, because he can't even remember. so so give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. So, ladies, we're at the end here. I'm looking at the time. I just want to thank you again so much for, again, I can't say this enough, taking this journey, because as we were talking about our chapters today, and we're talking about these larger themes, being Black women, mothers in the legal profession, it's so daunting. And with everything going on now, with the statistics of 300,000 Black women out of the workforce, like every day there's a new statistic that, is making us feel, that we're not worthy, that we're not wanted, and that we aren't enough. It's so important to have community, and it's so important to share. Like, I can't say this enough. It's important for us to share our stories with one another, and to support one another. So I thank you all for supporting the project, for supporting one another, for supporting the community by sharing your story. This is an act of service, what you guys have done here. And I know that for those of you tuning in, just by your comments alone, I know that you guys have definitely walked away with at least one gem for tonight. And I thank you all for tuning in and for supporting us. Because it's one thing to write these chapters, but it's another to actually have the community read, support, and digest. So my call to action to all of you who are still on the live, thank you for bearing with us, is to, get a copy of the book, even not for yourself, but for a colleague, for a friend, for a family member, for somebody who you think is interested in law school. Get a copy, share the word, spread the word that this anthology is here, and that there is a movement around, Black women attorneys. Anything you do will support. And if you have already gotten the book, leave a review. If it's a particular chapter, a particular quote, whatever it is, reviews matter. And so share your thoughts with us about your thoughts on the book and the conversation at large. And again, I just want to continue to implore the importance of supporting Black women attorneys who are mothers, not just by getting the book, but in your communities, in your workspaces, in your daily lives, because we need that support. You've heard some of the stories today. Like, we seem like we're all put together. We are, we look like we are so well put together, and there are days where we don't feel like we're put together. There are days where we feel like we're not worthy, and so your support means everything to us. And the last thing I will plug in here is that for those of you in the New York City area, we are planning an in-person book launch. The date right now is September 17th, so put that in your calendars. If there are any changes, we'll let you know. But we will also have, discussions on the themes of the book. It'll be an in-person networking event as well, too. So if you're in the New York City area, September 17th, mark your calendars, follow us on social media to get more information. And we hope that, you support us in that venture as well, too. Ladies, is there any last words you want to leave with our audience?
I didn't get to say it in the beginning, Rita. I just want to say thank you for taking the leap to spearhead this project. It is because of you and your commitment to this path that we're even able to share and really creating this resource for women, girls, the partners that support them, our families, to really understand what this journey looks like. And so just thank you for creating this opportunity. This is a game changer for Black women in the law. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys too. And, we are definitely going to, create more of these spaces, right? This is like the first virtual launch, but I'm sure that as the year goes on, we will get together in this forum again to share with the community, because I think it's important to get the word out and to share our stories. So definitely look forward to collaborating with you ladies on future projects, on future Road to Esquire projects. All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and have an amazing night.
Right. Take care. Great to see you, ladies.